Well, we are now live. I'm Tolis Dokianos. Welcome to this very first live stream on my YouTube channel. And today's a very special day, everybody. We are going to have a very big start to the end of this year. And as we're live, we've got some very exciting news to announce today, a great initiative, and it's all about building awareness, bringing the YouTube community together, and bringing some expert subject matters about what we're going to be talking today. So let's get straight to it. If you're a marketer, a business, or a consumer, and you got to pay attention to these important things we're going to be sharing with you today, it's all about what you can do to stop plastic pollution today. And we're introducing a brand new campaign called Team Seas. It's a campaign that was put together by two very influential people in the YouTube community. I'm sure you've heard of them before. One of them is called Mr. Beast, aka Jim Donaldson, and the other one is Mark Rober. Two of my favorite YouTube influencers who've really done a lot to contribute to the overall community, very popular people. And the reason I'm doing this today is, well, you're wondering why plastics and pollution, video marketing. Well, a lot of it has to do with consumerism. A lot of it has to do with consumer behavior. A lot of it has to do with doing something great for this planet. And coming from Greece, I'm very fond of the oceans, the sea. I've always been next to the water. I was windsurfing, sailing, swimming a lot, and having like a really dandy old time on beachfronts, especially in Greece. And our guest today is a subject matter, and she is no stranger to the ocean. She comes from a very unique place in the world today, and she's very well positioned to give us a lot of her insight. And what we're going to be talking about is how to help you reduce plastic waste on this fragile planet. And you meaning either you, a consumer, or you, a business, a brand. It's a topic that, admittedly, I know very little about, comparatively speaking to what our special guest is going to be talking about today. And something tells me that plastics pollution awareness is still not quite where it should be, and I'm sure our speaker is going to agree with me on that, but not to the extent that a difference can't be made to clean up our act. And it goes beyond just picking up trash on the beach or off the ground. I think it's much more profound a problem than we actually think it is. And like I said, coming from Greece originally, the sea has been such a big part of my life. And what does this have to do with video marketing and YouTube? Well, VidSummit is a very well-known video marketing conference. It's the #1 video marketing summit in the world where creators and video marketers and marketers get together once a year. And I've been witness to a lot of insights, a lot of education, new ideas, friendships, product launches, community initiatives, and this is one big, huge community initiative, and it's helped make a difference in people's lives. At the very end of the day, we're all in business to make a difference and to make people's lives better in exchange for an ethical profit. And the environment is no exception as far as I'm concerned. You see, as consumers, as businesses, as brands, we can do a lot to make a change, and even the smallest of efforts, like stuff we're going to share with you today, will make a big difference. So I reached out to my dear friend Leah. I'll introduce her to you a little bit more formally in just a moment, and I just want to let her know about this global initiative that we're part of right now by these two very prominent influencers, Mr. Beast and Mark Rober. So hashtag Team Seas is a campaign whose goal is to raise 30 million US dollars to rid the planet of 30 million pounds of trash, plastic, floating in rivers, lakes, seas, oceans around the world. And this campaign's has reached out and partnered up with the likes of Ocean Conservancy and the Ocean Cleanup, two non-for-profit organizations that do everything there is to do with plastics pollution and cleaning the place up. And all the donations to hashtag Team Seas will be split by these two charities 50-50. Now, the initiative is evidence of what the YouTube community is able to do to help the environment on a global scale. And let me say something about the matter. You know, a lot of people say there's different ways to approach plastics pollution today, but every little initiative is one step closer to making that big difference. And there's nothing too small or too big that all of us can do, just as long as we do our little part. Now, stick around till the very end of this live stream, and what we'll do is we'll show you how you can help too. And in exchange, what I want to do is introduce to you my very good friend, schoolmate, university buddy. We go back a long way, and she's going to provide us with some education, because like I said, I'm a layman when it comes to plastics pollution, but she's such an expert and she's so passionate about it. She's even been on stage talking about it at TEDx. And I'm going to introduce you to her now. And let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty. Hi, Leah. How are you?
Hi, everyone. So happy to hang out with you, Tolis.
It's so good to see you too, Leah. It's been such a long time, and I'm so glad that we finally had an opportunity to do something really special together. And you know, the first person that came to my mind when this global initiative campaign came to launch, you were the first person that came to mind, and I'm really, really pleased to have you on board today. Now tell us, Leah, where are you actually joining us from?
Well, right now I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I manage a consulting practice that works with organizations around the world to help them reduce their environmental footprint, including around single-use plastic. So today I can't wait to share with everybody a little bit about the issue and some of the solutions that are being implemented right now that everyone out there can support.
That is so cool. And you know, just so that people are aware, Leah is a native of Hawaii, and she's a lifetime surfer. She grew up loving the water, a love that continued at the University of Southern California, where she earned degrees in broadcast journalism and anthropology. She played for the women's varsity water polo team, and after college, she worked around the world in the sports industry. And that's when I first got to know Leah. She was managing projects with the PGA Tour, the NFL, and the World Surf League. And I remember her skateboarding around on campus when we were together doing our global MBA Thunderbird in Arizona, in the desert of all places. Poetically ironic, wouldn't you say? And she's worked for the Surf Routing Foundation and for the Second Wave Recycling, and now she advocates for reducing plastic pollution with 5 Gyre from her home in Charleston, South Carolina. Do let me know if there's anything that has transpired since then, Leah.
You have rocked that house. I think what is most relevant to today's conversation is that I transitioned from international sports to ocean conservation and had the privilege of working around the world to stop bad projects that were polluting coastlines and damaging ecosystems. And while I was doing that work, I noticed this intrepid rise of marine plastic pollution. It was washing up on beaches everywhere. So I joined the 5 Gyres Institute, who are phenomenal researchers about this issue. And I'm going to share some of their work with you all today as we start out to discuss the issue and how it came to be.
Well, that's very, very exciting. And, you know, I got a lot of questions of my own. And I think the best way to approach this would probably be to start a little bit broad. And let me start by asking you, Leah, why is plastic such a problem?
Well, Tolis, plastic is actually a really useful material and has advanced humanity in so many ways. The trouble is that we built systems to discard it into the environment, essentially, instead of responsible systems to take it back. And that's what I'm a huge advocate for today. If you are going to put plastic out on the market, there needs to be a way for you to assign immense value to it so that it will be returned to you in this concept that I've rudimentarily described as the circular economy. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And we know that this works in practice because that's what packaging used to do in our grandparents' time, right? They would drink a bottle, a soft drink out of a glass bottle, return it to the store where it would go back to the bottler, get sanitized, refilled, and back out to the consumer. So it was very circular, and really, I have so many graphs and studies to share with you all over the course of the next 2 months as Tolis and I embark on this series to share with you why this is such a problem and what we can do about it. But what happens when plastic gets out into the environment, which happens with immense increasing frequency and detrimental aspects, is that it degrades into smaller and smaller pieces. And as many of you all know, it looks like food to animals. So Tolis, I have a whole bunch of examples here. Should I start to share them?
Yes, please.
So a lot of people might have heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And there's this theory that it's twice the size of Texas. It's been put out it was a misnomer 20 years ago. But in truth, and this is kind of what it's actually looking like.
Wow.
These are some hotspots around the world. There are 5 oceanic gyres, and they are, because of their circular currents, accumulation zones. And then we have the Mediterranean is a massive accumulation zone, given all the rivers that empty into the Mediterranean Sea with no way out. When plastic gets out into the ocean, it degrades because of wave action, kind of chopping it all up a little bit, and photo degradation from being out in the sun.
Sure.
And here's a sample from the North Atlantic Gyre. Can you see it's a bit of seaweed scooped up from the top? And this is courtesy of the 5 Gyres Institute. But do you see all those little tiny pieces of plastic? That's ocean plastic pollution.
Okay.
And it's so hard to get back once it's out there.
Wow. So, well, let me ask you, where did you pick that up, literally?
Well, I wasn't able to go on this voyage, but the 5 Gyres Institute began to study this issue by sailing from continent to continent and taking samples. So this is from one of their historic voyages, and they put out the first paper in 2014 documenting the amount of plastic that was floating on the surface of the ocean, which we know is only a small part of the amount of plastic that is in the entire oceanic system.
Right. So what was intriguing when I saw that map of the world with those hot spots, I counted 4, but you also included the Mediterranean, which is probably a smaller body of water, which isn't that large compared to the other 4 areas. And they seem to be very much parallel to one another on either sides of the equator.
Yep, that's exactly right. The ocean currents are in line with the Coriolis effect, right, which governs our system of the atmospheric flow of winds, and that's what guides these ocean currents. And so once this plastic washes offshore, it lands on, if it doesn't, pretty much the theory is that it sinks to the bottom of the sea if it doesn't wash on remote islands, which can look like this.
Wow.
And these islands are ill-prepared. They don't have garbage trucks that are going to be coming down to pick up the world's garbage, right?
Sure.
And a lot of people say, you know what, this is a Southeast Asian problem, right? Like this is somebody else's problem. It's not mine. And that's a very flawed thought process. Plastic in the ocean belongs to no one, yet belongs to everyone. This is our entire global problem for all of us as humanity that we bear. And a lot of it can be resolved if we tackle systemic injustices that are happening around corporate stakeholder versus shareholder concepts. And I'll get into that in a bit. But I would like to share with you a sample that washed up in what is considered the most polluted beach in the United States. Can you see that? This is a scoop of sand, and there is hardly a grain of sand in there. It is just a scoop off the surface, and it's Camilo Beach, Hawaii. And Camilo Beach sticks out into the middle of one of the powerful currents of the North Pacific Gyre.
You know, it's interesting. I meant to say exactly that I saw no grain of sand in that little specimen that you just showed us. That's
Yeah,
pretty
crazy,
freaky.
right? It was somebody walking on the beach.
Yeah.
And this is terrible because future generations will have no idea what Tolis, you and I grew up with, relatively pristine oceans where
Yeah.
we were most concerned about oil spills
Mm-hmm.
or sewage spills, things like that. But plastic pollution, that the amount of plastic entering to our oceans is immense. They're saying, and then what happens is if it's not discarded properly, and a majority of the world's population do not have a garbage truck or recycling truck coming down the street to help them.
Yeah.
So they put it into dumps, really just outside of their villages or towns. And with every rainfall, plastic will eventually wash from where it's been deposited into the watershed and out into the ocean. So
And
again,
you know what's interesting? I was thinking back to the shipping routes in Greece, and a lot of those shipping routes also include passenger liners that use those same routes, and they sail across the Mediterranean through the Aegean Sea, off of the islands that are very well known around the world. And interestingly, I have always been able to spot large amounts of debris floating, especially off of those routes. And some of the islands in the middle of the Aegean, for instance, are hardly populated. If anything, they're just there. They're just these small little islets. And a lot of that stuff just accumulates on those beaches. And you see a lot more of these multicolored plastic containers and flip-flops, plastic bottles, you name it. And it is such a disheartening thing to see. And I think the thing that strikes me the most, like you said, there's like no access for any sort of trash cleanup boat, truck, or whatever to collect all that stuff. And it just ends up sitting there getting bleached by the sun and by the seawater, and they just kind of stay there. And not to mention what you can actually see when you go diving underwater. You see tires, you see all kinds of human created waste. And it's such a terrible thing to see.
Right. It's sort of what is known sort of as the Anthropocene, right? That's the age of human civilization on this planet.
Yeah.
And that will be how future civilizations know of our generation, right? It was plastic. That's what will define us.
This is the obvious and apparent stuff to our eyes as humans. Let's talk beyond that. Let's talk about the animals, the sea life. You mentioned something about sea creatures or sea animals thinking that plastic is food, right?
Right. So this is an iconic image taken by Chris Jordan, and it is a baby albatross. And what happens is their parent, and it's from the Northern Hawaiian Islands, and there's nobody or nothing for thousands of miles around the Northern Hawaiian Islands. And so these albatross fly, they're famous for an immense wingspan, and they fly for days searching for food, which they bring back to their babies. And essentially they kill their babies because they feed them brightly colored bits of plastic. So what happens is animals like this baby albatross, it ends up starving to death with a stomach full of plastic. You can't pass it out of its system. So we also have, and this is a little grotesque of an image, issues of entanglement of wildlife in the oceans as well because of plastic pollution. Nets and other fishing gear it's designed to last in the ocean environment. I have here samples of fishing nets. It's very durable. This is not going to break down anytime soon. When I was a child, in my generation, the marine fishing gear was glass balls, glass floats that were connected by ropes, right, to create the fishing nets. And that would what we call the glass balls would wash ashore and everyone thought it was a bit of treasure, right? What if
Yeah.
everyone thought that all the plastic washing ashore was treasure? Everyone would run out and get it, right? Like that's kind of what we need to think about when we design. When we design materials, we need to sort of design to get those materials back. And
Now-
more and more art. I'm sorry, yes, Tolis.
Just to kind of get some perspective on these nets, we think about line-caught fish, and these nets, one would think they're actually made of some kind of, I don't know, hemp or something like that. But are these actually made of some kind of plastic?
Right? It's a very durable plastic called nylon.
Yeah, we all know nylon, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, in fact, you know, nylon was there from the beginning with regards to the plastics industry. Think of making parachutes out of it instead of silk, which parachutes were made out of silk before, right?
Yeah.
So the way that plastic came to be so pervasive in our society is in the initial days, over 100 years ago, it was the main purchaser of plastic was governments, military, and it was used for all kinds of military applications.
Sure.
But in the 1950s, and you will learn this from my TEDx talk or any other, if you kind of Google, like, how did plastic come to dominate our consumerist society? Prior to the 1950s, generations of people were like, you know, everything had value. If a button fell off a shirt, that button would get sewn right back on or put onto another article of clothing or put to another piece of use, right?
Yeah.
And if, you know, a kid was chewing gum, the aluminum wrapper would get saved, like even documented for the war effort in World War II.
Right.
But what happened is after World War II, the plastics industry was saying, well, you know, the military wasn't purchasing the amount of plastics before. And in our society, companies are expected to grow at any cost. And that has put us into a perilous circle around capitalism in many ways, right? With this stakeholder value, shareholder value of capitalism and the incessant growth needs of that system. So that was what the plastics industry was looking at in the 1950s. And what they realized was they could market it to consumers, but they had to change consumer mindsets from one of circularity to one of take, make, waste. We call that the linear plastics economy, where plastic, when you were done using the packaging that the plastic came in, the item that the plastic packaging came in, it was up to the consumer to discard it. And that was a fundamental shift in value systems worldwide. And in some societies, like in the United States or Western Europe, the governments were able to put in place systems to collect plastic waste. But that is rare in the global scheme of things, still yet. So big companies are putting out a lot of plastic packaging. In fact, plastic packaging is more than 30% of the amount of plastic that is created from a year-to-year basis. Yep. And we put out 400 million metric tons of plastic every year. 30% of that is designed to be used just once, right? So how do we stop that travesty of thinking of plastic as a wasteful, throw it away someplace? And truthfully, there really is no away.
So are you saying that we've managed to change the mindset when it comes to disposing of plastic, i.e. recycling? Are we saying that we're now living in a recycling culture? And if so, does recycling actually work?
Not at all, right? So in the US, we're only recycling 9% of plastics that we use, right? It's a false narrative. Because the plastic wasn't designed to really be recycled into meaningful products afterwards, right? Plastic degrades over time. So if plastic had the value that other packaging had long ago, or even today, like glass or aluminum has an assigned value, like how many times do you see a glass bottle or an aluminum can by the side of the road versus a plastic one, right? Like, right. So
I find that shocking that only 9% of plastic is recycled in the United States. Is that really true?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what
Right.
would it be like in, say, Europe? I mean, like Europe seems to me like a lot of people are much more aware of, or are much more in the practice of recycling. I mean, there's a lot of, especially in Germany, for example, there's a lot of emphasis on recycling and reusability. And in particular, people like to use glass. But are we still that far off that we're not making much of a difference?
Europe is a much higher recycling rate, and I don't have the number off the top of my
Hmm.
head, but it's nowhere close to 100%. But you put it forth right. It's part of the culture, and
Right.
a lot of that culture is directed by what influencers, right? Like
Hmm.
Mr. Beast or Mark Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
or artists and things like that, that then got turned into government policy. So there's actually
Mm.
penalties. And companies are actually being penalized too through new forms of policy called extended producer responsibility. No longer are governments willing to let companies place their packaging waste burdens on taxpayers.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You know, what we never paid for
Yeah.
the packaging problems of the past, the companies footed the bill to get their packaging back. But
So
now
this
we're all paying the price.
this is very interesting. I mean, it kind of takes us into the direction that I want our conversation to go in. But first, just let me say for all of those that are just joining our replay right now, I'm on the horn. I'm live here with my very dear friend Leah Colabello. She's an expert in the subject matter of plastics and pollution. And we're talking about ocean conservancy, ocean cleanup, and specifically, we're emphasizing this brand new campaign that we're just launching here within the YouTube community, led by the likes of Mr. Beast and Mark Rober, and a lot of the YouTube creators around the world are supporting this initiative. It's called Team Seas, hashtag Team Seas, and you can find out more about this initiative and this campaign at teamseas.org. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what you can do on how to actually support this campaign if you really want to make a difference with regard to plastic solutions around the world. Long and short of it is we want to try and raise 30 million United States dollars by the end of this year so we can clean up 30 million pounds of plastic using these special machines that are going to skim the plastic off the surface, if I'm not mistaken, of the various bodies of water in the world. But you can get a lot more information about that on teamseas.org. So, Leah, we are talking about culture shift. We've spoken about a lot of interesting things. You've spoken about, I've just been listening, and sorry if I've interrupted you midstream, but it's such a thing that I've become passionate about of late, and I also want to be able to educate myself in addition to our viewing audience. Um, what, okay, you mentioned governments wanting to, um, I don't know if tax is the right word, but effectively um, empower businesses to take care of their own junk, their plastic, as opposed to having the consumers have to fork out the cash to make that happen. Is that, did I understand you correctly?
Yes, that
Okay.
is
And
exactly
how's
right.
that working?
Actually, quite well.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
Especially in when you look at the largest companies, the largest global companies, Europe is putting in place quite extensive extended producer responsibility laws to tackle this issue.
Hmm.
And here in the US, if I really highly suggest everyone take a look at the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act and check it out. And we also are starting to see extended producer responsibility laws in places like California,
Hmm.
Oregon, Maine, Vermont, New York. So
Hmm.
it's coming here as well. And part of the job that our team at Planet Purpose Solutions does is monitor this policy and inform our clients, right? Because
Hmm.
we have a whole formula to affect change within corporations that are looking to change their packaging.
Hmm.
So I'd love to share a little bit about that work as well.
Okay.
But
So,
before we get there,
yeah,
oh,
please.
excuse me, Tolis. Before
Gotcha.
we get there, we were starting to touch on how does that kind of change come about, right? How can we as consumers push back against plastic, right? How
Mm-hmm.
does that happen? And actually, it's hard, but we're picking up steam doing that. So I want to give a little nod to something that I've been developing, the theory of change. And the nod is to Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who I heard
Mm-hmm.
speak several times. She said something 5 years ago, and I was privileged enough to be in the audience. And Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, she's a marine scientist and also a climate expert. In fact, if you don't have her book, All We Can Save,
Mm-hmm.
you're missing out. It just came out
Okay.
this year with Kathy Wilkinson, another climate
And can
expert.
anybody just
But
get that on Amazon, for example?
yes, yep. And plastic pollution and climate are certainly intertwined. And that is a topic that we could discuss at another time, Tolis.
Okay.
But Dr. Johnson inspired me, and I started to riff on what she was communicating, that how important science is to tackling these large problems.
Mm-hmm.
And data informs scientists, and influencers are informed by that data, right? So scientists will sound the warning, too much plastic coming down the tap, the rivers, we need to do something to stop it. But until you actually know what types of plastic, where are they coming from, you're answering, where are they going, what's happening to them, what are the impacts? Until you have all that science, it's really hard to know what to do. But what was happening in this field of plastic pollution, and there's an entire industry of nonprofit organizations and experts that are working hard to stop plastic pollution. So data informs influencers like Mr. Beast and Mark Robert, right? It
Mm-hmm.
informs artists, informs students who are starting
Yeah.
clubs to stop this in high school and universities, right?
Yeah.
These are all influencers, not necessarily people who are just on the internet to gather a following. It's more than that, right? They're using their agency
Mm.
and power to
I really
shape
like what you're
culture.
saying.
Yeah, hold on one sec. So data informs influencers. Influencers inform culture. Culture informs people, and people inform policy, both government policy, like what we were speaking about, as well as business policy. And how do you
Mm-hmm.
do that? Well, you vote to inform government policy, right? Government policy, and you
Mm-hmm.
vote with your wallet to
I like
inform
that.
corporate. So if you don't like what a company is doing with regards to
Mm-hmm.
this issue, push back. In my TEDx talk, I'm like, wrap up that
Yeah.
plastic and send it back, right? And have been campaigns since then. Send back that plastic packaging and demand better, because companies care what consumers think. And so, or just don't buy their products. And that is where the reality, that's where we need that momentum, right? So it's all well and good to raise $30 million to clean up 30 million pounds of plastic from the
Yeah.
ocean. But if you don't turn off the tap of plastic entering into the
Mm-hmm.
ocean, we're going to just be doing fundraisers every quarter,
Yeah.
essentially.
I think that is such an
It's expensive.
amazing point that you've just brought up, Leah. Honestly, I think I've spoken to a few friends and colleagues in passing leading up to today's live stream, who basically said, well, yeah, it's a great initiative. We're trying to clean up the oceans and what have you, but it's probably just kind of skimming the top of things. And I think maybe they're right, because in comparison to how big this problem is, I mean, I personally still don't comprehend how big the problem is, but we're getting there. And I think the moral of the story is we got to start somewhere. And I love the points that you've just brought up with regard to Mr. Beast and Mark Rober, and of course all the other YouTube creators out there, because we have a responsibility to vote with our wallets, which I think that's an awesome point. So we should even do hashtag vote with your wallet, right? In addition to hashtag Team C's, we are in the position to actually be able to influence what companies do. I wish I had more information as to how effective that is, but I can tell you already in the past, where consumerism has boycotted companies that manufacture or produce foodstuffs or consume fast-moving consumer goods and what have you. Consumers actually have a lot of power, to influence change, especially with their wallet. So that is a point very well taken, Leah. Now, I did watch your TEDx talk, and by the way, for all of you who are watching this live stream on the replay or live currently, we will have the link to Leah's TEDx talk in the description box below. Make sure to watch that because Leah really puts on a great 10 minutes that is extremely engaging and powerful. So I do encourage you to watch that. Not just because she's my friend, I think she's great, but she really makes some very, very valid points. Now, you did bring up one cute little slogan, something about straws. Can you kind of tell us what that is?
Yes, it was actually in anticipation of a campaign. So the talk was in 2015, but it's still relevant today, sadly, right? Like terrible. But it was in anticipation of this campaign that was coming out run by our friends at the Lonely Whale Foundation. And it was about skipping the straw. So a lot of people don't know where to start with this issue, right? And, you know, what can I do to affect change with such a massive issue? And it's really easy, just start with something simple, like whenever you go out to a restaurant, and they serve a drink, just say, hold the straw. And if you need a straw, think about bringing your own. So there's, this is from Clean Canteen, a metal straw with a silicone tip. You can also think about bringing your own cutlery, right? How cute is this? This is from Chico Bag Go-Ware, and it's bamboo reusable cutlery in a little pouch. And this is from our friends at the Five Gyres Institute that I've already mentioned today. And I have so many other samples here that I want to share with you. Like, what could you do? And it's actually fun. So, for example, you could use shampoo bars. And there's also conditioner bars, and there's a variety of companies that provide those. Stasher makes silicone reusable bags. This is a form of plastic, but the idea is to get away from single use, right? We want to get back to value. So you wouldn't throw this away. You would reuse this. It's durable. And that's like the number one thing companies can do is make durable goods. This is a fun company. And I really want to tie into the fact that consumers can push back, but guess what? Consumers work for companies, right? Or they're entrepreneurs starting companies. So consumers are taking these values and putting it into practice. And all these things that I shared with you already, those are people who are driving corporate change, and we want to support them. This one is really interesting. If you are in a situation where you do need a single-use straw, this is from a company called Air Carbon, and they pull actually carbon out of the air and make a marine degradable plastic out of it. And they have a new formula that is, this is called Restore, and it's single use. And there are applications where you need to use a straw in a single use type of environment. And this is made out of, it's ocean microbes that they, fermented ocean microbes do, really, by the people at Air Carbon. Here's a couple more food service examples, because this is
so cool.
This is hard. So this is a company that launched in Chile, and it's wooden. It's called Clicky, and you just break these apart like chopsticks.
Chopsticks, yeah.
So it's a single-use application. Obviously, we would want something reusable first, but if you are in a situation which calls for that, there's options on the market by people who care and are trying to solve this problem. Here's another one. You ever go to run some kind of endurance race or a triathlon or something like that? You know those cups that they're all, they hand you water with at this. Well, Hydro Pack, teamed up with, and they created these silicone cups that runners could, this is pre-pandemic, by the way, but runners could hold on to them. And if, they have an accident and fall, it's not going to hurt them. It's a silicone cup. And you can just refill these instead of
where's that? Do you hang that somewhere?
Yeah, from whatever your runner gear is, that sort of thing. Or like, on your fanny pack or something. And then one more, well, obviously we know about cups, and this is one of my, I'm going to talk about this brand in a second, but it's a stainless steel cup from Clean Canteen, who also just came out with these awesome lunch canisters, these soup canisters. So there's so many innovative solutions on the market. You just got to find them.
Here's an interesting one. What about contact lenses, disposable contact lenses?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, right? Like, don't flush them down the toilet, that's for sure, right?
Okay.
There are ways to recycle those, but it's like a consumer mail-back initiative conducted by those companies. Our team works with Costa Sunglasses, who is the number 4 manufacturer of sunglasses in the United States. And we help them launch an initiative with their optical partners, right? The eye doctors out there, because every pair of like eyewear that you buy has clear frames on it, but then they substitute your prescription in, right? Well, those lenses they're polycarbonate. You can't recycle them normally curbside because they're number 7 polycarbonate, not accepted widely in the recycling system. And so we've devised a recycling program for Costa dealers to recycle those polycarbonate lenses and they be turned into things like safety goggles, motorcycle helmet shields, even medical backboards that are being used in India. So there are ways to extend the life of plastic products out there. But I did want to touch on something. We're talking about Costa. I have the privilege of working with them on this amazing initiative to work with a company called Borreo, again, young entrepreneurial organization backed by Patagonia, to collect damaged fishing nets that otherwise might be discarded and continue to fish, right? And what happens is they're collected from remote villages in South America where there is no garbage truck coming to get those damaged fishing nets, right? And so villagers don't really know what to do with them, burn, discard, and kind of pollute their villages. They don't want smelly fishing nets in their villages, right? Or worse yet, discard them in the ocean, which is where a lot of plastic that nobody knows what to do with ends up, because who wants to live surrounded by plastic trash? Not one of us. And so what Costa does is it works with Borreo, and it devised a collection of eyewear to draw attention to this issue and to incentivize the collection of more fishing nets. And so it's called the Untitled Collection. And what happens is these nets are turned into pre-production pellets. And remember, fishing nets are made out of nylon. Yes. And they have a range of sunglasses. It's called the Untangled Collection. And everything on this product is designed to be recycled, if not recycled. For example, these were, when we first came out, we were able to secure a foam production company that had recycled foam for us to use. Yeah. Aluminum, everything was very thoughtful. The glass obviously can be recycled. And then they just came out with a different set, which this is like 97%. And they're so fun. And when you wear or support these kinds of businesses, you become an agent of change yourself, right? Because you're voting with your dollar.
So what kind of, question. Do they come in prescription?
Yes. Yes, they do. Okay. And there's so much more. Costa is this amazing brand, right? And full transparency, I've worked with them for 6 years on their sustainability initiatives, including Kick Plastic, as they fight to protect the watery world from ocean plastic pollution. But who is interesting? The beauty industry. And I already talked about some of the shampoos. We have a client, Innersense Organic Beauty, that has transitioned their virgin plastic bottles to post-consumer recycled plastic. That's a step on plastic serves a purpose, right? Sure. And it's hard to find a substitute. So as companies are starting to transition away from virgin plastic, the next best course, if they have to stay in plastic, is post-consumer recycled plastic. Or again,
post-consumer recycled plastic. All right, let me digest that. So explain that to me in simpler terms.
So when you send your plastic to a recycling facility, it gets collected and sent to companies to refine and clean them, and then it gets put into those pre-production pellets. These are nurdles. This is kind of what virgin plastic looks like. Well, these are post-consumer plastic, the fishing nets, right? And they then they can be molded into certain plastic products. And it's much more challenging to work with in virgin plastic. So it demonstrates when a company is starting to do this transition to more innovative packaging solutions, they're being very thoughtful and they're paying more to get it done because they're putting their money where their mouth is. The people that are running companies that care. So that's
fascinating.
And yeah, post-consumer recycle, PCR, they call it.
So let's do a quick summary here. So we've spoken about, in terms of change, governments are imposing fines, governments are imposing, I wouldn't really call them incentives, although technically they could be considered an incentive, but in the form of some kind of taxation or penalties. Would that be correct in saying so? And you're saying that it actually works?
Yes.
Okay. So we're saying that one solution to plastic solution is at the source. Then we've also spoken about cultural change or mindset. There's still a lot of work to be done in that area, including here with me personally, I'm sure. I'm sure that if we had to walk into my pantry or into my kitchen, we'd find all kinds of stuff that could easily be recycled or reused, and ideally, hopefully not thrown away, although I'm sure there's a lot of disposable stuff that's just kind of hanging around. So tackling the problem at source seems like a very logical and sound thing to do. Voting with your wallet seems to be a very powerful thing to do for consumers. Use straws, cutlery, even shopping bags. Like, remember the days that we had double bag brown bags at the supermarkets in States? I'm pretty certain that doesn't really exist anymore. Am I correct in saying that?
It's the plastic bags are the ones that are disappearing from the market because of policy.
Okay, so I mean, here in Europe in particular, you got a lot of these reusable bags that even supermarkets sell to consumers when they go. I've got like a whole collection of them, and sometimes I even give them to people because I got so many of them. Let's kind of tie things a little bit further down to, okay, you mentioned some really good examples of what some of your business partners are doing, which I find great. I just love the glasses come with Costa glasses. That sounds to be a very progressive company, and I'm sure there's a lot of other companies here in Switzerland. There's this company that, I don't know if it's a Swiss company, but you may have seen them. They create bags made of tarp. Did you know that?
Yes. There's other companies that do that too. I have one.
Okay, because there's a lot of
But
plastic,
that's
obviously,
exactly right.
even in stuff that we wear.
Yes. And the fashion industry is working hard to tackle this issue. It's challenging. They're one of the top polluters on the planet, is the fashion industry. And you look to companies like Adidas, right, with their Parley for the Ocean collection. Stella McCartney has always been incredibly thoughtful about the materials she uses.
Okay.
In a world where fast fashion has dominated in the last 20 years, right? Easy, cheap, remember, keep consumers buying, right? Keep consumers buying.
Yeah.
We need to escape that mentality because it's not doing anyone any good except for shareholders. But not all, the majority of us aren't shareholders, it's wrong to capitalize off of the pollution of the commons. So there are people that are trying to make a dent, so we need to support them. And that is increasingly happening here in the investor world, something called investing in ESG, which is environmental, social, good governance type of companies that prioritize that. That is outpacing regular investments. So, and that is a whole other conversation that we can have, Tolis.
Okay. Well, we can definitely plan for one.
Yeah, but really, to start thinking about how we can all push back against plastic, just start small, don't get overwhelmed because then it's easy to give up, right? But
I agree.
Just make informed choices and buy from companies that care, and they're out there. And I would encourage you to all visit, if you're trying to figure out some products that would make sense. There's there's a store, it's like a zero waste store in Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
that it's Lauren, oh, her name will come back to me. She's amazing. She rose to fame by not using anything that you could throw in the trash. And she carried around a jar, like the size of a soup jar, and all her
Mm-hmm.
trash for a whole year went into that. And
Mm-hmm.
her name is totally, and I'm so embarrassed about it, but she started a zero waste store.
Yeah.
And whole idea of reuse what you can,
Mm-hmm.
it's out there. It's the first thing anyone has to do, whether you're a consumer or a company, is
Mm-hmm.
look for durability in the products that you make and the
Okay, yeah,
products that you
makes a lot of
purchase.
sense.
Yeah, that's the first
Wow,
thing. And
that's
then
great
design.
advice, Leah. Now, what I want to mention is the teamseas.org website is up and running. And currently, I'm just refreshing the page here. There's been quite a few donations made, and so far we got 619,000 pounds removed of plastic, so to speak, the equivalent. What that means is there's up to roughly $620,000 worth of donations just made, just in the matter of the first 52 minutes since we've gone live with this campaign, which is amazing. So what I'd like to do as we wrap things up for this evening or for today, in whichever part of the world you're in, I just want to show you what you can do. First of all, you want to go to the website. It's teamseas.org, and that is where you can technically join the team and make a donation. And I see a lot of donations from people: Antonio Kind, Luca, anonymous. If you want to do it, you can do it anonymously as well. I mean, people are actually contributing, and this is very exciting. I got a few pictures of Mr. Beast here and Mark Rober looking very excited. I'm sure you can follow a lot of the progress of how the Team Seas campaign is running on Twitter and other social media as well. And the good news here is also, if you are a YouTube creator or a video creator, you can actually participate in getting word around of the Team Seas initiative, so that you could help us remove 30 million pounds of trash by January 1st, 2022. So far, it's looking very exciting, and I'm so privileged to have you with us today, Leah, because you've just given us so much insight. I mean, such valuable information, and I gotta say, it is overwhelming. And what we probably need to do is, we got to simplify things for our upcoming live streams, because this is really just a taster. And I tell you, I feel a little bit overwhelmed about things that can be done. But I think the very first thing that we can do, if we just want to keep things simple for now, is Team Seas. It's a running campaign. You've got some time to actually do something. And really, in my opinion, this is starting small, right? It's still skimming the surface, literally skimming the surface of the oceans and bodies of water and ridding them of plastic. And I believe that there is a video that Mr. Beast and Mark Rober have produced that will be open to the public, so you can kind of see these machines in actions, how they're actually cleaning the environment up. In the upcoming live streams, we're going to probably end up doing one every 10 days. On my channel, I'll provide you with some footage of things actually happening around the world, from Ghana to Mexico to North America, South America, and other countries. Even in Indonesia, we've got pictures and footage of people, what they're doing to clean things up. I've got friends in Greece, even, just to let you know, who've been running an initiative for some time now to actually clean up the beaches. And one of the initiatives that the Greek government is currently doing, especially in Athens, for example, is we are repositioning the coastline of Athens, calling it the Athenian Riviera. Sounds kind of posh, but a lot of that also involves environmentally led projects, because the seas in Greece are very important to us. It means tourism. It means bringing people where they can actually enjoy the beautiful Mediterranean Sea. And we've got a lot of friends who go and visit the Greek isles, and it's such a pretty sight. And it's just keeping it pristine is at least one little incentive to keep the environment nice and clean. Unfortunately, a lot of things just kind of get blown away by the wind or whatever, and it ends up being in the seas. Or the contact lenses that you flush down the toilet may also end up down in the sea somewhere too, right? So there's just so much to consider. What I'm thinking personally, Leah, is I'll probably do an inventory of disposable stuff here at home over the weekend and just kind of start to condition my mind to be a little bit more aware. I think this is really what we're trying to do. And I'm actually going to have a go at influencing companies through my purchasing and possibly even having discussions with business owners when it comes to plastic. I think that's a good beginning. What do you think?
I love it, Tolis. And when we go into companies, it's called an audit, right? So let's audit
Okay.
the plastic that you use, this single-use plastic. I mean, give yourself a break, right? But again, plastic is a very useful material when utilized correctly in
Yeah.
its entire life cycle. Yeah. So then you can start to address it, right? Piece by piece.
And you know another thing, and it can still be confusing to some people, it's the different grades of plastic, the different types of plastic. They're categorized by PET 1, 2, 3. I don't know how many different categories of plastic there are. But I remember when I was working in advertising, my very first job as an advertising account executive back in Chicago, we were looking into Comstock fruit canisters, that actually contain pie filling. And there was research at the time of using certain types of plastics to actually produce canisters that were transparent so that you could actually see the pie filling inside. It never really took off, to be honest. I can't explain why. I guess people just kind of felt that tin was better somehow. But maybe a lot of stuff like that makes a lot more sense these days. I mean, I'm curious to find out more about what companies are doing these days to make a change. And I think that is really quite important because we're talking about mass volumes of produced plastic. And if they can't get stuff under control and be responsible all the way through to the end consumer, I mean, how much power do we as consumers really have at the end of the day? I don't
Immense. If everyone boycotted a company,
know.
like in this way that we're raising $30 million, right?
Yeah.
If all the followers of Mr. Beast, Mark Robert, and the YouTuber influencer movement that they lead, if they all pledge to stop purchasing from a company, you better believe that company listen.
I think you're absolutely right. So let me just kind of put on screen here what people can do as of today. This is really one of the very first things that you can actually do to help our initiative, and I think it's a great place as any to begin. So let me just put that up on screen for everyone. Hang on just a minute. And you can actually, so hashtag Team Seas is anything that you're going to do with regard to raising awareness. Please help us out, raise some awareness, share this video, share a lot of the other videos that you may see that revolve around plastics, hashtag Team Seas. And then, of course, you can always go to the teamseas.org website to make your donations, and you can even purchase some products to just kind of let people know that you're actively involved in helping resolve, or at least make a start, make a dent in getting people to participate in this initiative. I think that's just as good as as good a place as any. And then just mirroring what Leah had to say today is no more straws, right? Just don't. What was the slogan again?
Skip the straw or
Skip the
support a
straw.
strawless ocean. Just
Yeah.
take plastic out of takeout, reuse, bring your reusable bag. There's so many places to start. But Tolis, I really wanted to give a shout out to my family in Hawaii because they taught me to just, give so much of my passion and energy to protect the ocean. If you don't mind going to the wider shot so I can point out my family,
There you go.
And if you want to learn more, this is one of the premier, sort of a Hawaiian legend. He's my uncle, Eddie Aikau. And if you want to check out the Eddie Aikau Foundation and learn a little bit more about what they do to help generations of children in Hawaii to appreciate and help protect the ocean and the lands of Hawaii, please check them out. Their slogan is something that this entire room is surrounded by my family, and it's there is good to be done. So I would caution you, please don't despair. You have a lot of power. There is good to be done. It's in your hands. So I encourage everyone out there that might be watching this video to go forth and do great things.
Wow. That's really great. I really appreciate all your feedback. And what we'll do to all of us, to all of our viewers who are going to be watching this on replay, we're going to populate the description below so you can get access to all the links that we've spoken about, even the book that Leah shared with us, and any other information that Leah has. We'll just make sure to populate that on the YouTube, in the YouTube description below. I think this has been a great start, Leah. We've spoken about so much stuff, and I'm sure I'm going to come up with a lot more questions. And for those of you watching the replay and who've made it all the way to this section of our live stream, thanks very much for watching. It's really been a privilege for me to have my friend Leah join us today. She's really the most perfect person I could have thought of to launch this live stream series. So make sure you go to the links that we're going to provide for you. And in the meantime, you can go to teamseas.org, check it out, make a donation. Even if it's just $1, every little dollar helps. Every little pound of plastic that we can remove from the ocean. It's like a bag this big of plastic that we can remove with these special machines that have been developed. So Leah, let me thank you very much again for joining us. We will be in touch with you again soon. Make sure you share this video. Let people know what's going on. It's very exciting times. And if anything, there's a lot of things that video creators and marketers can do today to make a difference in the world. And if you as a consumer want to make a difference, just start with the small things. Just like Leah said, start using straw. Maybe take your cutlery. As nerdy as that might feel or sound or look, hey, you're making a difference. I already started with my shopping bag, so I'm quite excited about that. I thought I wasn't doing much, but that's at least something, right? Anyway, Leah, is there anything else that you want to leave us with? Maybe you can let people know where they can find you on any social media platform. Or on LinkedIn,
I don't know if I want
example.
people to know where they can find me after my lecture today. But Tolis, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share my passion with the wider world. I don't come out of my shell very often. And the purpose of our organization is to equip current and future leaders to be champions of change. So you can start right now, just, what Tolis was saying, bring your own, right? Or send your packaging back, or take on another campaign after teamseas.org is done. There's so many resources for you. If you would like to connect with me, you can find us at planetpurposesolutions.com, or you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Plastic Pollution Solutions. I will do my best to respond in an expedited manner and just have you on your journey. It's going to take all of us. Cool.
Absolutely right, Leah. Thank you so much. And we look forward to going live again very, very soon. Look out for all the announcements on our social media posts. This has been fun. We're going to go into some more depth with regard to marketing and advertising practices, with regard to how we can actually help make this, clean up the environment of any plastic. And that's pretty much it. This has been a lot of fun, Leah. Thank you very much. And that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll be in touch soon. Take care.
Aloha.
Aloha.